wrote back to him, quit, bro. It's just not for you. Because every day I get up and I found some new thing that I never knew about before, a new way to do something, a new way to challenge how my hands move and how they work, left hand, right hand, musical aspects of different chords and lines and notes that take me in a different place when I'm songwriting, so it never does end. So I've been working on a lot of things lately. Generally, I'm pretty much a pattern player. I get a pattern and follow it. I think that's why I was good at Pac-Man, because once you get that pattern, you realize you can get the high score every time. So, and a lot of times when I do private master classes also. When I do them, I'm really surprised that players that have been around a while and played in bands and made records and stuff don't understand some real basics. And it's wonderful to watch them light up when they find out about something as simple as do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, a major scale. And a lot of people really, they know what it is, but they don't know what it does and where it lands and what you can do with it. It's almost unlimited what you can do with a major scale. Well, I would take like a G major, and when I play a scale or play most anything, I do it in a little box, 4 frets, 4 strings, and that little rectangular box is where my fingers go almost all the time. Now there's an extension to it this way, an extension to it that way, some variations on it, but basically that's the thing. So if I'm doing a G major scale, why not extend it to the next 3 and to the lower one? So the 3 notes per string. There's 2 patterns there, a half step and a whole step, another half step and a whole step, a whole step and a half step, another whole step and a half step. So I got that pattern there. You can do all kinds of things with that pattern. You can play all kinds of chords, especially if your bass is in tune. It would probably be a highly superior way of doing it. Pretty close. Okay. So then I extend it. Scale, simple as can be, drill it over and over and over again. So I'm so used to the 3 assets that we all have. Muscle memory, you feel where your fingers are. By sight, you can see where you are. And by ear, you can hear whether or not you're hitting the right note. So those 3 things can always kind of keep you on that road. If one fails you, maybe the other one will jump in and help you out. So for me, just a bunch of patterns. There's 3 patterns I'm using in all of those. The ones I just showed you, half step, whole step, half step, whole step, and then the other one is 2 whole steps. So that's all I'm using is those 3 patterns for playing a G major scale from there to there. Half step. There's the 2 whole. There they are again. What's the value of that? What good is it, and what good does it do you? Well, G major is also E minor, which is the home for many rock songs. So it's called a relative minor. If you got a major scale, go 3 frets down, and it's the same scale, only it's a different key, but it's minor. So C major. It's the same as minor. So when you got to play a bass line, what notes do you go to? I don't know. What key are we in? We're in the key of G. So every note I played, G major, is a legal note. Scale. By drilling those patterns over and over, I get my hands so used to all those moves, and then we have to move out of the mechanics of shapes and forms and finger movement into a whole other universe, which is music and art. Much different. Mechanics are important. You got to know how to hold a paintbrush or a drumstick or a composer's wand, but that's the mechanics. The art is now what happens, that anyone is capable of doing anything when it comes to art, in my humble opinion. The simplest player in the world can touch everyone. The most complicated player in the world can blow people's minds. But that has to do more with music than mechanics. So what I try to do when I do my clinic, I show some mechanics, but I always try to emphasize to people, the whole point of it is to create music, is to do something that that's gonna touch people. People often ask me, what's your advice to young musicians? And I say, I got 3 things, supremely important. Get in a band. Incredibly important. Now, you run the numbers of the most famous and successful and loved musicians in the world. Almost all of them, at one point or another, they were in a band. They generally got famous in a band. They may have gone off solo later, but a band is the thing. And why? Get in a band with songs. With songs. You gotta have songs. What kind of songs? Get in a band with songs that you sing. Those 3 things will take you farther than the hottest, fastest riff you could ever imagine. Paul McCartney, richest musician in the world, was in a band with songs that you sang. Geddy Lee was in a band with songs that you sang. So you see my point there. All the mechanics are great to learn, but you aim it to the goal of being in a band, creating music that touches people, that reaches people. Now, as an artist, you can do anything you want. You can play the darkest, most hateful, awful, terrible stuff. It's just designed to turn people off and upset them and freak them out and make them upset. That's art too. But myself personally, I like to try to uplift people a little bit, sometimes with songs I do and songs I play. But generally, mechanics, important to know. Understanding what the goal of those mechanics are is music that we play. So the thing that really helps my clinics is if you have a question or a comment or a disagreement or criticism or whatever it might be. So the first person brave enough to ask the first question will win a fabulous prize.
I don't like your hat.
Okay. What's your question?
What's that?
You have a question?
I said I don't like your hat. You said anything that we had.
Okay, all right. Well, congratulations, you win the hat.
Thanks.
How do you do the 3-finger technique without it sounding like a gallop?
Yeah, very good. 3, you're going to get. It's going to sound like a gallop. Now, you should be able to do that with 4. So you must be able to do 4 with 3.
Is there a trick to it? Like, your longest finger shorter? Because I don't know.
A couple things at play here. And this is just a thing that I do. But I did it on my own without understanding what I was doing. But I found out later that it's verified by other players as a logical way to go about it. You see a stand-up player playing, he's playing over the neck. His fingers are always touching that neck. So his fingers never shoot past a certain point. They only hit the neck. And so his fingers hit the strings at the same place each time. If there was no neck there, they could overshoot the string and catch it or miss it also. So you had this consistency of where the finger hits the string because there's something underneath. But I couldn't play like that. If you see Stanley Clarke, he's always kind of like this when he's playing electric bass. Because a stand-up, which he's a monster on, he's a monster on both, but he's used to that positioning. So when he plays an electric bass, he's always got it up high and like this, kind of do the same thing. So for me, I discovered if there's something underneath my fingers, it's always going to be easier to get a consistent sound. So this pickup is in there very solidly, it doesn't move. I got stuff underneath it to make sure it doesn't move. It's rounded off to match the radius of the neck, so I can get it really close to the strings and play, and I actually end up playing on the pickup. All that. So I got that underneath my. way easier to keep it consistent.
Keeps you from digging in.
Exactly. So now when this finger hits and slips over the string, it hits it at the exact same spot each time. This one, same thing. This one, same thing. And once you get the calluses worked up where your fingers have a similar hardness, they'll start to sound the same. Sometimes if you're just playing with one finger for a long time, then switch to 2 or even 3. The 2 without calluses are going to be louder because they're going to be softer and it's going to catch the string there. So the calluses on your finger are essential for your tonality, in my humble opinion. Left hand too. I'll notice if my calluses are awful, I'm having a rough time and my notes are not consistent because the fingers are digging in and slipping off and all kinds of things. So that is a factor as well. So what I do, in order to keep that 3 out of there, is I'll practice 4s with the 3. And if I'm saying something that doesn't make sense or you don't disagree with or don't understand, stop me, and we're all friends here. And so it's very casual. So what I try to do is accent the 1. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 lands on the next finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 lands on the next finger. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1 lands on the original finger.
So you're not doing 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, or 3, 2, 1. You're doing like 3, 2, 1, 2, 3.
It always goes in this direction too.
So you're not going back and forth.
No, because it's slower.
Okay.
As opposed to it's just physical. If you work them, once this finger's done, he's got to recover and come back again and play again. He's got 2 movements time before he has to reach over and grab it again. When you're going back and forth, the middle finger is working twice as much, and these guys are kind of lazy on the outside. So it's actually not as efficient a way. I got online discussions with some people while saying that, oh no, back and forth is the way to go. And I felt exonerated. Rudy, you heard of Niels Henning Orsted Pedersen? He's a stand-up bass player from Denmark.
No.
Anyway, this guy is probably the greatest bass player that ever lived, that I've ever seen. You know, Jocko does that Jocko thing off his first record. This guy does it with Joe Pass on a stand-up bass twice as fast and 10 times better from back in 15 years before Jocko.
Yeah.
Now, the reason why I bring him up is because I didn't know that he was a 3-finger player on stand-up bass. So he's got a way of putting his hand that he can get all 3 in there. So I'm basically, without knowing it, I copied his technique. And it has served me very, very, very well. And when I see him play and how amazing he is, I feel a little bit better knowing that I'm doing something somewhat similar. I'm nowhere near as good as he is, not in my wildest fantasy, but still, I at least I'm on the path that he was on. So it gives me a little bit of encouragement. So that 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's like a drummer playing triplets if he's going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3. It's a triplet, but you accent 1 on a different drum each time. It'll start to sound like 4. So it is true that if I'm out of practice or a little soft, or I haven't been on tour for a while, it takes me about 2 weeks on tour to get my hands up to shape to real playing. Then it'll start to sound more like 4. Initially, I gotta work hard to keep it sounding like 4 instead of. But a lot of times in bass playing, that 16th note, Michael Anthony, that was his thing, holding that thing down while Ed did his thing with Alex. It really made a huge difference in the sound of Van Halen, I thought, being able to pedal. And a lot of people forget how awesome it is, the bass is for that instrument. It's just hanging it. Keep that thing moving along while everything else goes on in the band. And you're the guy that's the glue that's holding the drums with the melodies and sticking it all together. So that right hand technique, consistently being able to play notes like that is supremely important. So what you can do, anytime I have a hand thing that is either perplexing or I'm not too good at it, I'll just use a little bit of common sense and logic to come up with an exercise that'll make it better. Like if I notice if I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, I'm jumping, coming down. is easy because you're pulling them back this way. It's actually a more natural move. Going up is tough. What's the tough one? Get this finger to lift up and reach over and grab the string, and then lift up, reach over and grab this string the next time. So we'll create an exercise. Just consistently reach to the next one, reach and grab it each time. And you'll feel it. It's difficult and tough, and it'll start to, you'll feel it in your hand. But that's good. When you start to feel your muscles pushing back, you know you're pushing them further than they already are. And to get my right hand consistent, I'll always come up with different ways of exercising it in order to make it work better. So I'm generally always using 3, but sometimes I'll purposely do 4, do 2, these 2, these 2, just to kind of break out of the pattern of continually using the same thing. And when you break that pattern and break those habits down and go back, it's now, in a way, you kind of own it in a new unit of time. If I'm doing this on tour a lot, I'll warm up in the dressing room. Different patterns that I don't do live. And then I notice when I go back to doing my thing, it's smoother because certain fingers will get stronger than others. They'll get more callous than the others. So sometimes you got to force them into doing things that they don't normally do in order to get it smaller. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Making sense to anyone else? Cool. Right on. Rudy's here. I'm so glad you're here, bro. That's cool. So anyway, that's the thing on that. Now the 3-finger thing is a riot because you can do a lot of things with it without a lot of effort. Anything I can do, anybody in this room can do. I'm a firm believer in that. It may take you some time. You see some fancy schmancy lick go by hyperspeed. You can do it. Take it piece by piece, slow it down. There's a great piece of software called the Amazing Slow Downer for the Mac. I know they probably have one for the PC too. It just slows the song down, but doesn't change the pitch. So you can sit there and get exactly. I remember I learned the solo from. Learning Burn, and back in the bar days we had guitar, bass, drums, no keyboard. So the guitar player would play the guitar solo, and I would do the keyboard solo. So I could not figure out what was going on because it goes by blazing fast. Right. So I got the Amazing Slow Downer, figured the notes out, and I think I'll probably make a mistake. Wait. Never gotten that at normal speed, but there's it. So, and then Now, when I went, I was using actually 4 fingers, a little easier than.
That was.
Well, let's C5.
What's that?
Let's C5.
So I've been working lately because people ask so much about the 3-finger technique. I figured, well, why don't I start to work on the 4-finger technique? Because eventually that's going to come up. So
That was my question.
Was that?
That would have been my question. Why did you stop at 3? Why did you continue to 4? And that would have kept.
Because of that.
Oh.
Because we have
A small finger.
what seems like a limitation. Now you curl your hand. Now even the 3-finger, the middle finger sticks up.
Yeah,
so what I'll do is I generally work from get it flat by bending here. You see, they're still different lengths, but now that they're flat, I can get them. Sorry, bro. Flat up against there. And now if I bring this up, I can get that too. But it doesn't have a callus on it, so you hear that one note jump out. It was a great illustration. You hear that? Like what I said earlier, the callus has a lot to do with whether and how the thing sounds. So, anyway, that's the idea on the three-finger technique. A great exercises to do are very often our partner in crime, the drummer, drum rudiments. A paradiddle going back and forth. Always in that direction, never breaking that sequence. And it's a bear. When I first started doing this, and just recently too, I'd be going, just trying, but it was so, I don't know why I couldn't wrap my head around, but now it's starting to work, starting to kind of sound somewhat smooth. So you're doing a lot there with three fingers. That happens on these, and that. Three different patterns that's happening there. So it can be real confusing at first as anything. Take it micromolecular slow. Watch your fingers, watch what's happening, really observe how your hand is functioning on there. And you'll begin to see weak spots. And when you see a weak spot, like doing exercises, I'm good at running, but I can't lift weights. Well, then you start doing the thing you can't do, push a little harder on it to even things out. It's a similar way of going about it. You're a bass player, I assume, a three-finger technique you're using?
Try. Well, it's one of those things people try, right?
Yeah.
So.
And I'm always quick to point out, especially if I have an audience of a lot of bass players. I mean, we're all bass players here, but I mean, generally I try to emphasize, pick one finger, 2, 3, 4, thumb, slap, drill, whatever you want to actually play with is completely legal, and it drives me nuts that people would pick players. This is great. Most of what Paul McCartney did was pick, I think, in early days. Amazing playing, too. I even think Geddy was a pick player early on. I got the idea he was. There's no rule or law that says you got to play with three fingers. And I see a lot of people hang up on the idea that, well, I only play with two fingers, and if I don't play with three, the committee in the sky will disqualify all my music. It's just not the case. If you can make music you love with your index finger or your thumb or a pick or whatever, you are in. It's cool.
Well, you just see people do it, and you go, "Oh, holy shit! I gotta try that."
Yeah. Well, I do the same. I mean, I'm always when I see, and on the internet now we got
shredders left and right.
People shredding at 12 years old, and it's mind blowing. But there's always something to learn from everyone, and I want to learn some of that, but I also want to not lose myself down that wormhole of just technique, because you see that technique going up, but you don't see the music going up with it. And how many times I'd like to say to these guys, stop, write a song. You gotta write a song, bro. You gotta get on stage, you gotta play a song. Get on stage and play a song in front of people. And that is an essential element. I know myself, and I've been speaking with Rudy while we were together, we've spoken about it many times. We started when we were really young, and we're out there playing every night, all the time. And it led to an amazing adventure, an incredible life, and great success, thankfully. I'm supremely grateful for. But that wormhole of looking for the most amazing technique is a dead end, unfortunately, in my humble opinion. Now, I get criticized a lot for, all he does is solo, but I do a 2.5-hour show. They videotape my solo and post that. They didn't post To Be With You and Just Take My Heart, and all the songs that I'm playing regular bass on. So I get tagged with that a little bit. I don't mind, but it's just, I wish they post the whole show, please. But yeah, so the technique thinking you can lose yourself in it, and one of the best things I did when I was young is I started to play along with records and just learn songs. The Yardbirds, having it rave up with the Yardbirds. Learn side one, learn side two, do it over again all day long. Sgt. Pepper's all day long, The Who's Next all day long. Play along with those things, get the idea what it's like to play with a drummer, follow the bass player, listen to how the vocals work, all those things. But yeah, that's good to know too. And it'll just give you more vocabulary to express yourself. the more vocabulary you have with your language, the better you can express how you feel. I mean, if you only knew the words good and bad to describe things, how you doing today? Good. How you doing today? Bad. Well, is there anywhere in between? You know, if you knew a few more words about how to describe how you feel.
Right.
Similarly, the more you know, the more vocabulary you have. So you got to describe some musical idea or thought or feeling or emotion. Now you got a lot more ways of doing it with 3-finger technique or 4 or more. But it can be done. And you see very simple poetry and very simple statements sometimes that say an encyclopedia's worth of wisdom in a single sentence. It can be done. You know, so I don't mean to harp on it, but that I always try to warn people from getting lost in that whole technique thing that can end up working against you.
Sure.
Make sense?
Yep.
So is that helpful about the 3 fingers?
Yeah, absolutely.
You get how that goes. And that thing underneath there, now DiMarzio makes the Relentless pickup, and it's covered in sheet nickel, very thin, so it's absolutely shielded. The things for see I have them down on here, normally the screw sticks way up, and there's no place for your thumb. So it's already, these aren't the Relentless pickups, but these are what the Relentless pickups are based on. Smoothed off, shielded, the thing is down, they're super loud, and they don't need a battery or any electronics, and they're as loud as most active basses. So having that surface there, automatic, because I would have to take a regular pickup, shave it down, epoxy it, do all this crazy stuff. It was a huge pain in the neck, and it was never consistent. Some were great, some were awful. So now I've got the Relentless pickup you can pop in there, and if you're interested in trying that, look into it further, and it's a way to get those pickups up close without hitting the strings, because this pickup, if you get it up close, this part of the pickup hits this string, and this part of that pickup hits that string. So you can't get them really close because they're flat. So now we curve them so that this curves down and that curves down. You can get them up nice and close without buzzing, without hitting, and get a real consistent tone. And also much less of a click and clack. Not a lot of. I see sometimes here. It helps with that a little bit too.
Yeah, I got another bass with the what do they call it? Not a bridge, but a piece of wood underneath the strings.
Yeah. Gary Willis, wonderful bass player, he came up with the Willis ramp.
The ramp, yeah.
Which is the same principle.
Same idea, yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Some basses come kind of with that now too. So. Who else has a question, statement, or yes, sir?
Yeah, I have a question about like your take on bass and songs.
Yeah.
So like, what's your take on like when you should play like the guitar riff with the guitarist rather than like your own creative bass line? And then also like when to play certain fills or when to just let the song breathe.
Yeah, that's an open-ended answer.
Yeah.
For me, generally, I get away with murder because I'm playing with the drums.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times I get away with a lot more shit than somebody else might not, because I'm locked into what the drummer's doing, and I'm watching him like a hawk. And I play a lot with Mike Portnoy now, and we watch each other. And in the middle of a song, he'll, and I'll play the same exact rhythmic thing, and we'll look at each other like, how did you know? How did you know? We'll get this automatic ESP thing happening, which is the greatest joy in my life, is to have had that thing. I just did the clinic in Mexico City with a drummer named Thomas Lang. Quite an amazing player. And but drummers are my thing, so I was watching him like a hawk. And in a couple minutes, I got an idea like who he was going to move to when I would catch it. And he'd look up like, wow. Because all of a sudden, it would be this cohesive secondary melody or rhythmic thing that is not dissonant or clashing with what's going on in the song. Because we got two guys doing it together, ensemble. Okay. So I've just finished over 300 songs, maybe 6 albums recording during the pandemic. And people out of nowhere just sent me their stuff. So I didn't, I said no to one guy, but everyone else I accepted the challenge. And there was electronic dance music, hard country, I mean real, hayseed grass, that kind of country, death metal, jazz, some classical stuff, all this wild stuff. And so it was a great challenge for me to figure out what do I do in that song. Yeah. And I don't know if there could be a all-encompassing answer for that. But one of the best things I think that prepared me for it is I listen to a lot of music, and in my computer thing there, I got my hard drive. It's over 2 terabytes of MP3s, the broadest spectrum of styles you can imagine. Everything by all the major classical composers, everything by Beethoven, everything by Bach, Tchaikovsky, Debussy, Rachmaninoff, Liszt, all those guys. Everything of theirs, a full collection of everything. Every Beatles record and the bootlegs and the demos and the alternate mixes. So you listen to a lot of music from a lot of different styles. You start to see what the bass is doing and how it's weaving its way in. And there's, with any given song, there's probably an unlimited amount of ways to play it. Paying attention to the vocal and the melody, getting out of the way of that, sometimes enhancing it. You find sometimes in a pop song you hear some little high little bass line that actually kind of makes the song.
Yeah.
One little thing, not necessarily a wild ass,
Yeah.
blazing thing, but just some little thing can move the song in a whole different direction. And again, drums. When I was explaining to this gentleman before about the 3-finger technique, those paradiddle and drum rudiments, and to sit down behind a kit and actually play, and I can fake my way around a kit a tiny bit, but I want to get better at it, because the more you know about drums, the better you're going to link with the drums, and within the body of a